Well, America's schools are in a state of emergency, and after nearly a full month on the job, the Biden administration remains curiously unwilling to ring the alarm. We've got nearly 124,000 schools that have experienced closures since the beginning of this biological nightmare, impacting 55 million students. This is a time when America's students were already falling behind their peers around the world. Math skills for American students have remained stagnant for decades. U.S. test scores have dropped far below the global average. And now, in the midst of this pandemic, with lockdowns replacing poverty as the greatest threat to educational progress in this nation, our children remain locked out of school because of educators who refuse to return to the classroom for reasons that have very little to do with the science. Why, you ask? Well, because of teachers' unions that care more about power than saving the young minds our future depends on. Now, to be clear, health is paramount. Teachers should want to protect themselves and their students. But we have reams of data proving scientifically that schools are some of the safest locations in a COVID-19 world, and they consistently rank as one of the lowest drivers of transmission. Dr. Marty Makary of the renowned Johns Hopkins School of Medicine sums it up perfectly, saying, if we are really listening to the science, it tells us that more kids die when the schools are closed than when they are open. And Dr. Robert Jenkins, the global chief of education for UNICEF, concurs, stating the benefits of keeping schools open far outweigh the cost of closing them, and nationwide closures of schools should be avoided at all costs. So if the scientists tell us that the kids need to be in school, and educational experts tell us that children should be returned to the classroom, then why in the world are our children still prisoners of virtual learning? Well, as is the case with most things in life, follow the money, and you'll likely stumble into the truth.
Listen, it's never been about the guidelines per se in Chicago. It has always been about the generations of neglect, under-resourcing, and underfunding, and the defunding, quite frankly, of public education here.
Now, I'm not saying that the teachers aren't concerned about their health, but you heard it straight out of their own mouth. This is not about their health. It's not even about the kids' health, really. It's about power and payback and an agenda. And clearly their partners in government have taken notice. It's why Dr. Fauci, a man who has long maintained kids should be in school, suddenly has assumed the position that returning children to school is dependent on passing President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID bill filled with pork barrel spending for their pals over at the teachers union.
We really do need more resources, and that's the reason why the National Relief Act that we're talking about getting passed, we need that.
Here's the thing, though. The overwhelming majority of the money earmarked in that bill for school spending is backloaded. Put another way, it is money that has been earmarked not to open up classrooms today, but to pad school budgets years from now, when presumably the COVID-19 crisis that we face has already passed. Only $6 billion of the $70 billion allocated over the next 3 years for schools is slated for 2021. That's less than 9% of the total spending allocation at a time when we are at the height of the COVID crisis, with parents and experts alike pleading for our politicians to get our children back to learning. And when politicians like Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina pointed out this insanity and tried to propose an amendment that would require schools that receive these federal dollars to actually open the doors, the Democrats unilaterally rejected that common sense suggestion. In the last month, the left has demonstrated more commitment to the changing of names on the front of schoolhouses than ensuring our children can get back inside of those buildings to learn. They have decided it's more important to lecture parents on being insufficiently anti-racist instead of recognizing the soft bigotry of poor children locked out of school is more abusive than any symbols of racism that they have exaggerated in their own mind. So if we're going to be a nation that believes education is a vehicle to the future our children deserve, then we need to prioritize that future today and open the doors before it slips away